When the Democratic National Committee moved to relegate the First in the Nation New Hampshire primary, national Democrats cited New Hampshire's relative lack of racial diversity. But in the Granite State's wide-open politics, people of color and candidates of color are on a remarkable streak of success, and that's true in particular for the GOP. One of these rising stars joins us in studio this morning, Ryan Terrell, who just won the NHGOP vice chairmanship. Congratulations, and thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Thank you very much. Happy to join.
So what do you think your victory says in particular about New Hampshire politics, particularly against this national narrative that's out there?
I think what it says is Granite State Republicans are ready to move forward. We're ready to win. I know that we're tired of losing, especially federal races, but we have a very thin margin in the state house. Luckily, we held on to our governorship. But, you know, I think it's telling us that we're opening up our open for business sign and really creating that big tent that we've always talked about. But now that we have some leadership, I think that we actually can bring in people that maybe haven't seen themselves in the Republican Party before. And that's what I'm really excited about. Yeah, the new NHGOP chairman, Chris Ager, when he was on the program, we asked him this same question. How do you get Republicans not named Chris Sununu to win those statewide races? Yeah, I think what it's about is really finding people who maybe they associate themselves with the Republican Party, but they haven't been as active. They don't show up to the meetings. Maybe these are small business leaders who don't quite see themselves in the Democratic Party, but haven't made themselves available to us. And I think by finding those leaders out there and really elevating them, that's our first task. And we have a ton of talent that's already in our GOP tent. So I think it's about elevating folks who we don't even know yet that we'll find over the next few months, and also by bringing people forward who have just been waiting on the sidelines that just need a little bit of push forward. In the competition between the parties, the Democrats have positioned themselves as the party of racial equity and anti-racism. But at the same time, the Democratic Party is getting more college educated, more suburban. Do you think there's an opportunity out there for Republicans to make gains in communities of color, particularly in the working class? Absolutely. I think that I'm a microcosm example of that. I'm the first black vice chair of the party, and I think I may be the youngest vice chair of the party. So bare minimum, our committee members are showing, hey, we're ready for some new ideas, we're ready for a fresh face. And also it's been really refreshing because I'm educating folks about the history of the Republican Party. The Republican Party was founded in Exeter expressly to stamp out slavery via the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And so as I'm starting to educate that we're the first Black Lives Matter party, we're the first party to say that all lives matter, I think it's really important for us to just tout our history and really just open up for business. You have to be neutral in the First in the Nation primary ahead, but how do you see this primary playing out, particularly in contrast to the Democrats? So we already have some exciting candidates in the primary. We have Vivek Ramaswamy, we have former Governor and Ambassador Nikki Haley, we have former President Trump, and who knows who else is going to join the ranks. So I think Republicans are really excited to show our candidates across New Hampshire. It's unfortunate that the Democrats gave up their First in the Nation primary for thinking that New Hampshire is too white, but we have a ton of great candidates who are going to come by, honor that First in the Nation primary history, and really show people what the Republican Party is all about. And the thing that I'm really excited about is each candidate who I just named is completely different. All of them offer a different version of what it means to be a Republican, and that's what you're going to see from us from all the way up to the federal level, even down to some of the statewide races. You know, in what's dangerous for the Democrats if they do walk away from this process, and we know the state level Democrats are not going to try to let that happen, but how do you use the primary to harness more and more voters and bring them into that big tent that you talked about? I think what we want to highlight is a lot of what Democratic policies are doing are being regressive. They're breaking systems and institutions that were otherwise functioning before. And so our First in the Nation primary is unprecedented in its history. We have a very responsible and active and civically engaged Granite State voter base. And so the fact that the First in the Nation primary was given away by the DNC just shows that they're willing to forego history and tradition for political expediency. And that's exactly what we saw with President Biden's ask to put it to South Carolina. This could be a very divisive primary as well. We know there are always fights that go on, but you do have a certain former president who has not necessarily indicated that he would be supportive of eventual nominee that's not him. How do you maintain party unity in what could be a very divisive atmosphere? It's a great question. So our leaders certainly play a big part in keeping our party together, but it's important to acknowledge that Donald Trump isn't our party. Our party are the state committee members that elect our leadership. Our party are the individual candidates that run. And so while we have a very boisterous former president president with Donald Trump, who his style appeals to half the country and absolutely repels the other, we have to acknowledge that he doesn't represent the total values of what the Republican Party are. And I would just pay attention to what our leadership is doing, what we're doing as a state party, because one candidate doesn't represent all of us.
Obviously, you've been very involved in the issue of education, serving on the state board as well. I'm curious where you want to see that issue go in the years ahead, in particular if we see Republican administrations continue and Frank Edelblut continue at the Department of Education.
Education is absolutely a red meat issue in our state right now, and as it is, because it's covering two important topics: our tax dollars and our kids. So it's important that, first of all, parents get a seat at the table. I think you're going to see a big push for parental rights that's happening across the country. We're also seeing just parents wanting to weigh in on the curriculum and understand why some of these curriculum changes are happening, and just really trying to hold school teachers, administrators, and school boards accountable for material that doesn't feel age appropriate. And that's the biggest thing. We want kids to be able to have an inclusive, all-around education where they learn everything about everyone. However, we really want to make sure it's all age appropriate and developmentally appropriate. And I also think you're going to see the GOP start to really stress performance standards. We took a big step backwards across a ton of different metrics in public schools. And what we want to do is hype up the effort to really make sure that students aren't taking that learning loss and they can actually perform at grade level or above. And so I think what you're going to see from the GOP is a hyper focus on education, continuing to expand school choice, continuing to increase the Learn Everywhere programs, and really building a robust education system that can serve all Granite State children.
What about this idea to give the head of the Department of Education subpoena power to deal with teachers that, you know, a very controversial issue that they feel are involved in these so-called divisive concepts?
I think it's important because right now there aren't really many outlets for parents or individuals to raise concern about certain curriculum. Schools have had the ability to teach certain curriculum that helps students to understand the context of the world, but as that curriculum again gets a little bit more extreme to some parents and gets a little bit more developmentally inappropriate, I think that we should create measures that allows the Department of Education to at least bring those concerns to forward and investigate what's happening with the curriculum. Listen, we have great public schools and great public school teachers across the Granite State. I know that because I was a part of and continue to be a part of the Teacher of the Year committee, where we see all kind of great educators. So it's not really that we don't have great teachers, it's that we're seeing a spread of material that's just alarming to some parents. And so if we can give them a pathway to raise concern, I think that that's appropriate.
NHGOP Vice Chairman, State Board of Education, how do you serve the interests of the party and also the state education system? Is there an opportunity there for a conflict of interest?
Yeah, I certainly understand that. For me, it really is quite literally two different hats. When I'm sitting on the State Board of Education, my sole purpose is to make sure that Granite State children have pathways to learning and make sure that families have all the access to the educational needs that they have, completely nonpartisan. For me, my role in NHGOP Vice Chair is less about policy and more about mobilizing a team. I'm more of a coach than I am a political operator. So my job at NHGOP is to find candidates, get them into our system, give them a lot of material so that they can be successful running elections. And I think that those two roles are completely separate from one another.
All right, Ryan Terrell, thank you so much for joining us on Close Up. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of you in the years ahead.